Hi, I'm Scott Gwinnell, and I'm going to help you create jazz voicings for the 2-5-1 chord progression. The 2-5-1 chord progression is really special because it is a pianist and a guitarist way to express themselves playing pure jazz voicings. These voicings were created in the 1940s and 1950s by great pianists like Wynton Kelly and Bill Evans. These voicings themselves are almost representations of classical voicings, but not quite. So it's important to know what the classical voicing is. In particular, 1, 3, 5, 7 of each of these chords, but we're not going to play them exactly that way. So when we talk about 2-5-1, we're actually talking about the 4-5-1. And when we add seventh chords to them, they sound a little bit different. But they're not going to exactly sound like that because the 2 chord comes from the same family as the 4. So we're going to replace the 4, we're going to take it out, put the 2 chord in there instead. We're still not there yet though, because what we want to do is create good voice leading between chords. And voice leading is the ability to play notes that are the closest distance from the other note that have like a positive forward moving direction. So when we play a 2-5-1, we don't want to jump all over the keyboard. This is not a great way to play it. Number 1, you have to move more with your hands. 2, it doesn't sound like it's moving to the closest location. So if you've ever played even a simple rock pattern where you played something like this, you've played good voice leading. So we want to employ that great voice leading to our 2-5-1 chord. So let's start with the 2 chord. So if we take the 2, in this case a D minor 7, we're gonna get rid of the 2 out of the right hand. We're gonna put it in the left hand. If there was a bass player on your gig, you just completely leave it alone, and your right hand would play something that sounds a little more abstract by itself. But for the sake of playing solo piano here, we're gonna put it back in. So now that we get rid of the 1 out of the right hand, we're gonna keep the 3, put it in our thumb, put the 5 in our second finger, put the 7 in the 3rd finger, and then we're going to use our pinky to play the 9. We're going to put the 9 in this chord. So immediately it's a little bit different, because if you're reading a lead sheet, you might see D minor 7. It might say D minus 7 or D small M7, but what it's actually telling you to do in a lead sheet is to put the 9 in that chord. So this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of us may have trouble approaching like a progression like this, is because it leaves little things out like that are very important. So here's the chord again. Now with there's our 3, 5, 7, 9. Now range is really important on this, guys. I can't stress that enough. So we want to play in what's called the sweet spot of the piano. The sweet spot of the piano is D3 to about the octave above that. So if we put our chords mostly in this part of the piano, it's going to get the most resonance. So there's our D minor 7 again. So if I just stopped you there, guys, you wouldn't know how to finish this progression. So let's take you to the 5 chord. Now this is one of the easiest transitions you can make, because if we're going to use good voice leading, what we're going to do, besides moving the root note, of course, from D to G, we're going to keep every other tone right where it was in the 2 chord, except for moving one of those tones, and that's C. So the 7 of the D minor 7 is going to turn into the 3rd of the G7. Now that's the most important movement of this chord, because that separates the 2. So if we didn't have that, we'd be in trouble, because the other 3 tones aren't going to move. So watch this. Here's the D minor 7. We're moving that to the G7. F is going to stay the same. A is going to stay the same. The B moves from C, and the E stays the same. Now, let's not confuse that with the tones not changing, because as soon as you move the tonic or the root note, the notes take on a different, they take on a different value. So technically, the F, even though you're not moving it, the third becomes the 7. All right, the A, which used to be the 5th, by moving the tonic, becomes the 9. The C, we do move, so the C becomes a B, and then the E, which used to be the 9, now becomes the 13. So listen to this chord while I play the entire thing. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. So, so when we go to the 5 chord, the dominant chord has probably the most aptitude for different colors. And what I mean by different colors is including different notes in it. We're going to go with a very basic approach just so you can get a handle on this new 2-5-1 progression. But just to let you know, when it's up to you comping, that you could use the 13, you could use the 5. I personally like the 13 a lot, but I realize it's an acquired taste for some of you. So you might, if the 5 is kind of more your liking, you might want to start like that. So, all right, there's the 2 and the 5. So now let's talk about the 5 to the 1. So again, we have good voice leading getting us from the 5 to the 1 chord. So, all right, there's our 5. The 7 of the 5 is going to turn into the 3 of the 1. All right, the 9th of the 5 chord is going to turn into either the 5 of the 1, or you could actually keep it as the 13th of the 1. All right, the 3 of the 5 chord is going to stay right where it is and become the 7th of the 1 chord. And last but not least, the 13 of the 5 chord becomes the 9th of the 1 chord. So listen to it going between both of those. So that's the 5 to the 1 with good voice leading. Even if I take this out, if you have a bass player playing it, it's going to sound good, because not only are you playing with a good voicing, but ideally you're going to be playing it in rhythm and comping it. So it's going to kind of take on a whole new life. So before I mention that, range is really important, I really want you to think about that, because you want to keep your thirds and your 7ths of each of these chords from going underneath D3. And I can't stress the importance of that, guys. Watch this. If I take this down a couple steps, listen to what happens to the chord. All right, so now I'm playing a B flat minor 7 chord, but I'm playing underneath that D3. I'm playing one of my notes, and we're kind of in the mud now. Now it's not horrible, but it's a little muddy. Now we're really starting to get into the mud. So you really want to be careful and be cautious about playing your chords too low. And the reason I bring that up is because obviously if you're going to play a 2-5-1, you don't want to just play it in the key of C. You're going to want to play these in all keys, because playing in all keys is crucial to you becoming a complete jazz pianist or guitarist. So you're going to want to practice these, and there's a couple ways to go about it. A couple ways that work for me. One of the ways is doing your 2-5-1s in ascending order. So you'll notice I did a 2-5-1 in C, and I say it's in C because the 1 chord is in C. Then I went up a half step to D flat, so that took us to E flat minor 7, to A flat 7, to D flat major 7. Then I went up another half step to D. That was E minor 7, A7, to D major 7. And remember, all of these, if you see them again in a lead sheet, they're just going to look like simple E minor 7, A7, and D major 7. It's going to be up to you to add that color to the chord. That's very important. So working in ascending order is one direction you can go. The other direction you can go is descending. So I'm going to go kind of up high so I have somewhere to go. I'm going to start at 2, 5, 1, and F. Okay, so that was a 2, 5, 1, and F. Then I go down. This is one method that you can use to play all of the chords. Another one you can do is go through the circle of fourths and fifths. So I would do it maybe in C, starting in C. And then after that, I would go to F. Okay, then I would go to B flat. Now notice I'm kind of in the basement here, but I'm still above D3. Okay, then E flat. You know, then I'm in A flat, but notice I don't go way down to this chord. Listen to it. Really in the mud here. Now, so I go up. Now check this out, guys. That sounds kind of high, doesn't it? It does. And notice it's also kind of blocking some of where you normally improvise. So because of that, we have what's called a B position chord. And a B position chord is kind of the sister to the A position chord, where the A position chord, you're putting the third in the bottom. The A position chord is the exact same chord, except you put the seventh in the bottom. So that makes a good alternative to the chords that are too high. So the B position, the sister to the A position chord, has all the exact same notes. So we would play that 2, 5, 1 in C now with the seventh on the bottom. And notice the C still goes down a half step, but now the C is on the bottom instead of in the middle of the chord. And then we bring the other notes down to the same, still B, D, E, G. So now officially we have two 2, 5, 1 positions to use. We have the A position, or. So to be honest with you, I would probably I'd favor the chords that would make my bottom note of the chord be right around here. So because that gets me in the sweet spot of the chord. So if I'm way up here, I might find this a little distracting, especially if I'm trying to improvise, you know. So notice how I kind of had to move my hand out of the way because it's really kind of getting in the way there. But if you remember, we did the 2, 5, 1, and F, and that had me way up here. So, but watch this when I play it in the B position. Perfect. So right down out of the way in the sweet spot of the piano. So I would recommend doing the exact same things you do with the A position, doing them with the B position. So work through them in ascending order, descending order, and through circle of fourths or fifths. Once you kind of get an idea of, how these progressions go and using them kind of in their own vacuum, now it's time to put them to use in an actual song. So I'm going to use "Take the A Train," which is a really great song to use for this because most of the song uses A position chords. So with the exception of the bridge, we can pretty much stay on A position chords and A position 2, 5, 1s the entire time. So "Take the A Train" is a Billy Strayhorn composition written for the Duke Ellington Orchestra, and it's readily findable anywhere. It's readily findable anywhere you want to look, and it's typically in the key of C, and it starts on the 1 chord, which is a C major 7. Okay, so it starts on two bars in C major 7, and then goes to D7, and some people play D7 flat 5. So you can imagine, instead of going like this and playing 3, 5, 7, 9, if the chord is a flat 5, you want to take that down a half a step. But it's still the same type of it's the same type of jazz voicing. Now we get to our 2-5-1 chord progression. Here it comes with your D minor 7, just like we showed you, and the 5 and the 1. Believe it or not, that's the entire A section of the song. Check this out in time. Nice, smooth, easy tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the A section of Take the A Train. So it's a AABA form tune, meaning it has 2 themes to it. Its A theme is that one, and then it eventually goes to a B theme on the bridge. So the bridge really quickly goes to the key of F. When it goes to the key of F, remember how we played a B position 2-5-1? My recommendation to you would be to go to that B position 2-5-1 also. So check this out. So if we were ending up the A section, we go 2-5-1 to F, okay, and we stay in F, and then we go back to our D7 from the A section, all right, and then we do a 2-5-1 back to C, and that gets us back to the A section one more time, and so, in short order, you can play a great song like Take the A Train with your jazz voicings. One more thing to consider when you're playing these voicings is that they don't exist in a vacuum, meaning you can't just play what we call a pad. A pad is like a half note or a whole note. If you did nothing but played them like this, now sure, it's got harmonic sense, but you're not comping, and you want to be able to comp this. So to comping, the other half is adding rhythm. Now, I would recommend starting out with easy rhythms. An easy rhythm that you could start with is called the Charleston rhythm. Charleston is a dance from the 20s, and the rhythm is simply the hit on the and of, let's see, it's on ba, ba, so 1, and then the and of 2, like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be a Charleston rhythm. So I could take those chords and comp them like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. Another thing that you could combine that with is I've heard people call it delayed Charleston, meaning you just take the same rhythm and you put it back half a beat. So the rhythm that used to be 1 and then the hit on the and of 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that now becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the same rhythm, we just scoot it back a half a beat. Now, if it were me, I would not find one way to play any rhythm because it gets a little old after a while. So if you mix the two and maybe do the delayed Charleston first and then the Charleston, watch how all of a sudden this brings these 2-5-1s to life and these chords to life. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the delayed, and then the regular Charleston. Delayed, regular. Now, the great thing about this is you can find a rhythmic way that fits your character, whether you like to play notes short or long. So it could be, So long or short, or mix it up. Now I don't want to get carried away with myself here, but you definitely have to consider rhythm when you're playing these, especially when you get to the point where you're putting them into tunes. So A Train is definitely an example where you can use, if you wanted to use nothing but A position 2-5-1s, you could do that. But I even recommend if you get to the point where you're on the bridge, go to the B position 2-5-1. Now, there's programs that are great to use to help you work on it. You could, of course, use a metronome to help your time, but there's also programs like the iReal Pro that works great. That way you can have a bass player and drummer play while you put these voicings in your left hand, because that's the next step, is once you can play them in your right hand like this, now you got to move it to your left hand. So let me scoop myself over like that. So the voicings are in the exact same place. They don't move, but they're not now being played in my left hand. And if you're a beginning pianist, I can't tell you how important it is to work on your technique, because it's not just important for your solos to sound good, but the evenly playing of these chords, and the reason why they come off sounding smooth is because I have strong technique in my weak fingers, my supposedly weak fingers. So every note's going to have equal pressure on it. And that's really important, especially if you're using your fourth finger or your fifth finger. So ways you can do these 2-5-1s. Once you get it to the tune placement, you can improvise with it in your left hand. You can play the melody with your right hand and play the chords in your left hand. It's really endless possibilities now that you have this new world of harmony opened up for you. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you. My name is Scott Gwinnell, and we'll see you soon.